Cartier operates nearly 300 boutiques across the globe today, auctioning individual pieces for upwards of $1 million. The brand has adorned modern royalty, with figures like Princess Diana wearing their signature creations. And a century ago, it was the jeweler of choice for the titans of American industry, the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, and the Fords. It is easy to assume this empire was founded by aristocrats with massive reserves of capital, but the history of the house begins with a much thinner ledger. In 1847, 28-year-old Louis-François Cartier used his limited savings to buy a modest, struggling watchmaking shop in Paris from his former employer. The foundation of this empire was a matter of opportunistic endurance, catalyzed by a violent political revolution that offered a sudden, unexpected chance for expansion. As the business slowly developed over the next few decades, Louis-François' son, Alfred, took the reins. His arrival coincided with the 1870 Paris Commune uprising. This socialist revolution targeted the French aristocracy, many of whom needed to flee the country immediately. However, with bank access restricted, they were unable to access their wealth. The fleeing elite turned to their jewelry as portable currency. Alfred realized they were desperate for immediate cash to fund their escape, and he offered to buy their finest pieces for a small fraction of their actual value. When the Republic stabilized in 1871, Cartier was in possession of one of the finest jewelry collections in France. This sudden influx of high-end inventory allowed the firm to move into a larger space on the prestigious Rue de la Paix. This single window of political chaos transformed a local watchmaker into the primary jeweler for the European elite. By the turn of the 20th century, Alfred's three sons, Louis, Pierre, and Jacques, realized that maintaining a presence in Paris was no longer enough to secure the brand's future. They decided to physically separate to capture the wealth of three specific financial and cultural hubs. In 1909, Pierre traveled to New York. He focused on the booming, new money industrial economy of the United States, eventually opening a shop on Fifth Avenue. Jacques, the youngest, moved to London to cultivate the brand's presence in high society and secure a loyal aristocratic clientele. Meanwhile, Louis, the eldest brother, remained in Paris to serve as the creative heart of the brand, designing the actual pieces and predicting global trends. This trilateral strategy secured Cartier's presence across the world's most vital financial centers decades before the concept of the multinational luxury group existed. Back in Paris, Louis enforced a standard of perfection where any piece that didn't meet his mark simply never saw the light of day. He also recognized a shift in public mood, directing the house to produce everyday luxury items like gold yo-yos and highly decorated cigarette cases. In 1924, he designed the Trinity ring, three interlocking bands of gray, yellow, and pink gold. Releasing such a simple, unembellished design at the peak of the loud and colorful Art Deco era was a significant contrarian risk. To push the brand's identity further, Louis worked with Jean Toussaint, Cartier's director of fine jewelry and a creative thinker who served as the firm's primary driving force. Toussaint, nicknamed the Panther for the feline skins that decorated her home, integrated the panther and leopard motif across the brand's vanity boxes, bracelets, and advertising. Under their direction, the house produced vibrant, colorful works like the Tutti Frutti collections, complex arrangements of carved rubies, emeralds, and sapphires that auction today for over $1 million. By prioritizing these distinct, often contrarian visual markers, Louis and Toussaint ensured a Cartier piece was recognizable not just for its materials, but for its unique, unmistakable silhouette. This period of global dominance faced a crisis in the 1960s. Following the deaths of all three brothers, the Cartier family heirs chose to sell off their respective branches separately. New York, London, and Paris were now disconnected entities. The brand was entirely severed from the founding family, and the original group structure was gone. In 1972, a French resistance hero named Robert Hawke set out on a mission to reunify the brand. He systematically bought back the disparate branches, merging them into a single, unified entity, Cartier Monde. To expand the brand's reach, Hawke introduced the Les Must de Cartier line. This offering of more affordable products successfully opened the brand to a broader public, moving beyond the traditional high society client base. The reunified company was eventually integrated into the Richemont Group in 1988, securing its place in the modern corporate luxury landscape. From its start in a modest Parisian watch shop to its current status as a 300-store global empire, Cartier's survival has relied on a consistent ability to reinvent its business without ever losing its iconic signature.